In this video we're going to calculate Nilou's damage numbers and DPS, and we'll find out what is her best artifact set and weapons as usual. Let's start with understanding her kit and her roles in a team. After she casts her elemental skill, she has two options to choose. Option 1, she can become a main Hydro DPS by doing normal attacks, which will be infused with Hydro and have increased damage based on her max HP for 10 seconds, with 18 seconds cooldown. Within this 10 seconds period, she can do 6 strings of Hydro infused normal attacks combo. And that's pretty much it for the main DPS role, aside from her elemental burst that I will explain later. Option 2, she can become a Hydro support by tapping her elemental skill 3 more times, dealing AoE Hydro damage pretty similar to Diluc's elemental skill, and then she will create a Hydro ring around her by the 3rd hit that can apply wet status onto the enemy who gets touched by it. Not only that, with her passive, if her team consists only Dendro and Hydro characters in it, by tapping her elemental skill 3 times will grant the team a buff that will increase their elemental mastery by 60 when they got hit by Dendro attacks, and all of the Dendro cores they created will quickly burst, dealing damage, and have larger AoEs. Since Dendro cores also hit the character, then you will get the EM buff consistently too. Her other passive will massively increase the damage of these quick bursting Dendro cores based on Nilou's max HP. Every 1k max HP above 30k will give 8% damage bonus with a maximum of 300%. So you'll need to have Nilou's max HP at 68k to have this maxed out. As you can see, option 2 gives her so much to give to the team, which I strongly recommend. Her elemental burst is pretty straightforward. She will deal a big AoE Hydro damage, and all enemies that gets the damage will get another even bigger damage after 2 seconds. Her elemental burst has 18 seconds cooldown and 70 energy requirement. Now that we know her kits, we can try to make up her rotation and finally calculating her DPS. First, let's use her as a Hydro support so we can utilize all of her passives. Her rotation as a Hydro support should look like this. With this rotation, I assume that she can create 4 Dendro cores by the time her second burst damage triggered. I know that we can make a lot more Dendro cores during those 18 seconds, but those Dendro cores won't belong to Nilou, but others, so we can't include them in Nilou's DPS. Also, let's assume that the team would consist of 2 Dendros and 2 Hydros for double resonance bonuses, and one of the Dendro will have the Deepwood set equipped to get the Dendro resistance shred on the enemies. So to recap, the bonuses we get from those assumptions are 25% max HP from the Hydro resonance bonus, 80 elemental mastery from the Dendro resonance and bloom related bonuses, minus 30% Dendro resistance on the enemies from the Deepwood set. Now let's apply all those bonuses and find out what's the best artifact set, main stats, and substats for Nilou. Let's start with full HP build first. With full HP build and her signature weapon at her 1, Nilou can have whopping 74k max HP. My Zhongli is only at 55k. So using 2-piece Millilith and 2-piece EM set, Nilou can deal 7.73k DPS in 18 seconds rotation. Using 2-piece Millilith and 2-piece Hydro set, Nilou can deal 7.8k DPS. Using 2-piece Millilith and 2-piece Noblesse set, Nilou can deal 7.82k DPS. And by using 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece EM set, Nilou can deal 7.95k DPS. And since attack stats won't affect anything on Nilou's damage, we can ignore the rest of the artifact sets. And also, since we have reserved 2 Dendro characters for the 2 new Dendro sets, we won't bother putting in Nilou either. So in conclusion, 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece EM set is the best option as you're going full HP. The benefit of going full HP is, Nilou will buff the entire party for every Dendro cores produced by the party. With her max HP going above 68k, this means the Dendro cores are buffed to the maximum amount of 300% reaction damage bonus. So in my opinion, full HP is the best choice for Nilou. But for the sake of testing, let's try another build. This time let's try changing the goblet to Hydro Goblet. As you can see, her DPS is now slightly higher, but her Dendro Core buff has been downgraded to 264%. For support role, I think we must conclude that full HP build with the 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece EM set is the best option for Nilou. Still, make sure to have Nilou at above 68k HP though. For F2P players that don't pull for her weapon, going with the 2-piece Millilith and 2-piece Noblesse set is the better option to get that extra max HP to buff the Dendro cores. Now since attack doesn't affect Nilou's damage, it is much easier to pick a 4-star weapon for her. Here is the weapon DPS chart for support type Nilou. From this chart you can see that in her 5 Iron Sting is the best option for F2P players. Next, let's move on to the main DPS type of Nilou. To be a main DPS, Nilou must use her normal attack combos right after casting her elemental skill. Doing so will grant her an increased damage based on her max HP and infuse the normal attacks with Hydro. She can deal 6 strings of normal attack combo during the skill duration of 10 seconds. So the rotation is simply like this. Using her as a main DPS like this doesn't require her to be in a Hydro Dendro team comp, and her passives also won't work either, so we can ignore all that and solely focus on her pure damage. But since her damage comes from her max HP, having another Hydro to activate the Hydro Resonance would be a great idea. In this calculation, I will include a 25% max HP buff assuming she will be accompanied by another Hydro team member, and I will make her burst damage vaporized, assuming she will have a pyro support such as Xianling or Bennett. Using her signature weapon, I find that using the full HP build like we used in the support type only yields 9.78k DPS. Changing her Goblet to Hydro Goblet makes her DPS rise to 12.32k DPS. Changing her Circlet to Crit Rate and changing all the HP substats to Crit substats makes her DPS going to the roof at 15.62k DPS. And one final change, using 2-piece Heart of Depth instead of 2-piece Noblesse set makes her DPS rise slightly at 15.95k. Now I don't know if her normal attacks damage during her elemental skill duration can be increased by the 4-piece Heart of Depth set, because in the description it says that her damage is considered as elemental skill damage. But if we try that 4-piece Heart of Depth set instead of 2-piece Millilith and 2-piece Heart of Depth set, her DPS only rise so slightly at 16.03k DPS. So to be safe, a 2-piece Millilith set and a 2-piece Heart of Depth set is the best artifact set for main DPS type Nilou. Now with this artifact set, let me show you her complete weapon DPS comparison chart. Surprisingly, a 3-star weapon Harbinger of Dawn at her 5 beats a lot of other 5-star weapons for Nilou. So this is definitely the weapon of choice for F2P players. But the catch is, you need to maintain Nilou's HP above 90%, just like the good old Albedo days. So to recap, the best artifact set for support type Nilou is a 2-piece Noblesse set and a 2-piece EM set. But if you don't have her signature weapon, use a 2-piece Millilith set instead of the 2-piece EM set. The best F2P weapon for support type Nilou is the Iron Sting. For the main DPS type Nilou, the best artifact set is a 2-piece Millilith set and a 2-piece Heart of Depth set. And the best F2P weapon for main DPS type Nilou is the 3-star weapon Harbinger of Dawn at her 5. And that concludes my Nilou's video. Subscribe for more DPS calculation videos like this for future characters, and I'll see you on my next video.